Indian history is very diverse, very rich, and very ancient. We are one of the very ancient, still living civilizations in the world, which has carried on its past and history to current day. But if you were to look at how our history has turned out, just about 400 years ago, India contributed to 25% of world's GDP. But we don't know that. It's not a very commonly known fact because the world around you, when we look at our world, India is one of the poorest country today. So this it is certainly not a recent memory that we hold of our ancient past and rich history and culture. History is not a easy subject to teach in school. When I was a student, I never enjoyed history, and I always wondered what is the role of history. I mean, what is the value of learning history? It's over. It's in the past. So why do we learn history? But today, I can admit that I was very wrong. History is very important to us, primarily because it gives us a sense of our identity. It is not about the past, it is about how we turned out to be who we are today. And it is also about how those decisions in the past, that some of them we are very proud of, many sacrifices that have been made, very tough choices people have made to move forward our culture, as well as many shameful decisions that we have made, and some of the misfortunes that we have to go through. All of us, sum total, is what makes us what it is today. So our current reality is nothing but a sum total of the decisions that have been made in the past. So it is those decisions, it is those lives, it is those sacrifices that is what makes of history. It's not about dates, who was born when, who was born where. That doesn't constitute history as much as those decisions. However, in school we don't focus on those nuances of the conditions under which people have made certain choices. We focus purely on dry facts like who was born where and how big was a particular empire, how many years did they live, and things like that, which frankly, in my opinion, doesn't really matter. The tapestry of our history has to be seen from identity, culture, choices people have made, and that explains a lot of who we are today, how we think today, and why what is the situation we find ourselves in today. Hence, if you were to look at history from that angle, it then informs you of not just our current situation, but it also gives us a glimpse of how our future is going to turn out, because our cultural beliefs is what makes us as a society think, and our current choices, we think that we are making our current choices very independently, but we are not. We are making it based on our the leanings that we have gained from our past. Hence, knowing the past gives us a peek into the future as well, and that's why history is very important. But I want my interest of history is also from another angle. Is that even when we look at our the history that we learned in school, I always felt a little concerned about how broad, how what kind of a broad brushstrokes we painted of our history. We kind of start somewhere in the Vedic period, then we quickly move into some of the Ashoka and Gupta dynasty type of thing, and then very broad Ashoka and Gupta periods, and then we quickly get into the Mughal period, and we go into a lot of details into the Mughal period, because if you were to say I can't tell beyond Ashoka, I can't even name three other kings, but in Mughal period, I can name every king until Aurangzeb, and then we go into the British Empire, and that too, into the East India Company period and the British Empire period, and we can name everything there. So there are two problems in this view. Number one, we know very scanty little beyond Mughal and the British period. It's kind of dominated. Our narrative is dominated between Mughal and the British period, because there's so much of fact and so much of stories that have been told, and so much of it has been covered in our history books, even in schools. Hence, we are missing a massive amount of history beyond these two periods. The second part is untold stories, and even when you talk about Ashoka, there are many more dynasties and empires which were there in remaining parts of the country, we don't even talk about them. We don't know anything about the northeastern part of the history of India. We don't know anything much about the southern part of India. If you go to look at it, the longest running dynasty is Chola dynasty. It is 1,500 years long. It has been running. Not only that, they were a big colonial empire. They not only were in Tamil Nadu, but they went all the way to Southeast Asia. We don't know anything about them. If I have to ask anyone to name two kings of Chola, they can't. Even I can't. I probably can name like one. And then the Vijayanagara Empire. We can't go beyond one or two kings there. So there was so much going on in the history in the past 1,500 years that we don't know. And I want to understand for myself first, and I want to write about interesting stories around histories which we do not cover in the popular narrative. And so the set of blog posts that I'm going to be writing will cover the stories that are ignored, the stories that make us, and it is going to focus on the narrative of the lives of the people and not so much about the facts. That's what I want to cover in the set of blog posts that I will be writing. And it will also span across mythology. We will go towards the Vedic period and the mythology, which also culturally shapes us, and historical figures and historical events. And I'm not going to follow a chronology. I'm going to go back and forth between the mythology and historical events and Vedic periods and the current periods and then Mughal periods and all of it. So and it's going to go back and forth, and I want to keep it to more readable kind of a format and not really give you too much of details, but rather what do we learn from this is what I want to focus on. So I hope you enjoy. Please do share your comments and come along on this journey with me.